course, flying hasn't got quite as far as this yet, but at the rate things are going, it won't be long. This is a helicopter. It's the outcome of all those fantastic windmills and autogyros that one used to see drifting about before the war. In the autogyro, the horizontal vanes were driven by the airstream from the usual kind of prop. But in the helicopter, there's no prop, and the engine drives the vanes direct. And all movements of the aircraft are controlled by altering the pitch of the vanes. The little rotor on the tail prevents the body from swinging around under the torque. The helicopter looks like being the small man's plane of the future. It can do practically anything. Hovering is a speciality. Well, that's one new way of getting about. Here's another. This sheep was just sitting around, minding its own business, when... Actually, it was really quite safe and sound. It's just the latest way of picking up passengers. The first experiments were made with a sheep, just in case it didn't work. But it did. And so here's the first aerial hitchhiker. And here he is being hauled aboard. You see, the system is foolproof and absolutely safe. I can say things like that, I'm only the commentator. But the real flying development of the last few years is the jet. This is the original Squirt, the prototype of the Gloucester jet. Since this plane was built, many improved types of jet have been completed, and jets have been on ops with very good results. They achieved special distinction in the battle against the flying bombs. You know, when you're not flying in this, I suppose you could always use it as a hoover. And here she goes. High-speed flying is all very well, but what about the effects on the pilot? The terrific pressures, the blackouts in high-speed turns and dives. At the Banting Institute in Toronto, experts of the RCAF have been conducting a whole series of experiments on these effects and the various methods of counteracting them. This contrivance is known as a centrifuge. It will put you through anything up to 20 G, 20 times the force of gravity, which is all right for those who like that sort of thing. The subject is fitted with ear opacity recorders, which show the amount of blood in the ears. He has a set of electrodes on his head to record brain waves, and another on his chest to record heart waves. In the centrifuge, a movie camera makes a complete record of all reactions. The subject has a rotating target and a dummy gun button. This is not just to keep him amused, but to demonstrate his ability to operate under G. The little black screen on the left will show the signals he's to respond to, and the indicator on the bar to the right of his head will show the amount of G. And here he goes. Throughout the experiment, doctors keep a close watch on all reactions, blood pressure, heart, and so forth. 1, 2, 3, 4. At 5G, his responses get a bit haywire and he blacks out. Now the strain is relieved. Subjects only submit to 5 seconds or so at a time. A chart gives the experts a complete record of the trip. You can see quite clearly the point where he blacked out. To overcome these very unpleasant effects, Wing Commander Franks evolved his now famous flying suit. By means of air or water pumped into it, the suit keeps the body under pressure. This neutralizes the pressure of G and prevents the blood rushing to the head, the cause of blackout. Wearing the suit filled with water, Sergeant Forbes tries the centrifuge again. This time, he's going to take up to 7G. This means that for 5 seconds, his body will weigh over half a ton. Watch his pace and the G indicator. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5 G. He's still conscious and answering all the signals. Nice work, Sergeant Forbes. Yes, thanks to Wing Commander Franks and the experts of the RCAF, we shall soon be able to sport about the sky in complete comfort. Just as long as we don't mind wearing corsets.
This little chap reading the notices on a Burma station is Jimmy Natu. Jimmy's a Gurkha boy who was found wandering about searching the swill bins for food. He was starving and suffering from malaria. After he came out of hospital, Jimmy stayed around as the squadron mascot. Yes, Jimmy is now definitely on the strength, having been with the RAF over 3 years. He shares the food, the jabs, and anything else that comes along. Jimmy's a regular Irk. He helps to service the machines and makes himself useful generally. And whenever there's a scramble, Jimmy is there, personally supervising each takeoff. And the pilots would consider it most unlucky if he wasn't. For these services, Jimmy gets his pay, 2 bob. Only it's paid by the boys instead of the Air Ministry. Yes, Jimmy Natu is now quite famous up and down the airfields of Burma. In fact, he even calls a certain group captain Uncle George. The members of the squadron are clubbing together to pay for Jimmy's education when he gets around to it. And one day he hopes to come to England. Meanwhile, Jimmy is just, well, one of the boys.
Men and women of the Air Force, here is a problem that concerns each and every one of you. Let's take just 4 of you, any 4. Say this flight mechanic, the pilot of this Spitfire, the WAF driver working on this car, and this GD. Just 4 types pressing on to final victory. Hi, you. Yes, I mean you. I say, do you mind? And you, can you spare a minute? Oi, you! Yes, you. But you're all much too busy. You haven't time to listen. You can't listen, even if you wanted to. Or can you? But you must listen. You must all listen. What are you going to do when it's all over? Some of you may choose to remain in the service. It'll still be a big job to do there. But for the majority of you, Civvy Street. And there's more to Civvy Street than just a civvy suit. What about that new job? Your new job. Do you feel that you're qualified for it? Qualified to be a useful citizen? But wait a minute. Do you know what this stands for? What, no idea at all? EVT. Educational and Vocational Training. The RAF scheme to help you to adapt yourself to your new life. Here's Air Commodore Perry Keane. He knows all about EVT. Excuse me, sir.
Oh, go away, I'm busy.
Well, sir, we only wanted to ask you a few questions.
Well, if it's leave you want, you've had it.
Thank you, sir, but it's not leave. It's about EVT.
Oh, EVT? Well, that's different. What do you want to know?
Well, sir, is it true that EVT applies to all ranks?
Oh, yes, to officers, airmen, airwomen, in fact, the whole works.
But it's not in operation yet, is it, sir? When's it going to start?
It'll start when the war with Germany ends. Of course, by the time you see this film, that war may have ended.
I suppose it'll be a spare time job, sir?
Well, you can work on it in your spare time, that's up to you. But we are aiming at a minimum of 6 hours a week in working time. The RAF cannot guarantee you a job, but it can at least improve your qualifications for civilian employment.
Well, thank you very much, Air Commodore Perikeen. First, there's resettlement training. This will concern all of you, because it's about the business of every citizen. It will tell you all about your system of government, your borough and urban councils, your county courts and your systems of law, your schools and child welfare, all the workings of social service. Then there's educational training. Now this deals with more personal problems. Let's take your case, for instance. You went straight from college into the RAF, didn't you? Training to be a chemist, weren't you? Well, educational training's your answer. Study, revision, continuing your career where you left off. And lastly, vocational training. Training for a definite civvy trade. Now, your problem's quite different. You've learnt a new trade in the RAF, and you want to adapt it to civvy life. A conversion course will show you how to do it. Can you remember much about your old job as a secretary? Do you know all the new tricks of the trade? Well, all you need is a refresher, a brushing up, some instruction on the latest equipment. And you've never learnt a trade, have you? Well, the RAF can't offer you complete training, but the RAF can start you off. And how is the RAF going to accomplish all this? Well, first, there'll be classes given by men and women who are fully qualified in the subject of your choice. There'll be film shows, books, and private study. And in the case of vocational training, demonstrations by experts. But that's all right for the big stations, isn't it? But what about the little places, miles from anywhere? Well, if your station is a remote one, or there are only a few of you wanting specialized training, then your needs will be met by mobile vans. These will make regular calls. They'll be fully equipped, and their demonstrators will travel with them. Well, that's EVT. Somewhere under these three headings is the answer to your problem. We can't possibly tell you all about EVT in this film, so see your education officer. Read all the literature, decide on your own particular requirements. Because essentially, the success of EVT depends upon you. The RAF will provide the classes, the lecturers, all the instruction, but it's up to you to make the whole scheme work. Up to you to take full advantage of all the facilities offered. You will be teaching yourself, and at the same time, you'll be helping to teach others.
Well, now I want to come on to the second part of the discussion, and that concerns the duties of the citizen. What have we got to do in return for what we expect from the government? What's the first duty of the citizen, do you think?
Well, the first duty, sir, is for a citizen to use his vote.
Yes, to use his vote. Now, do we know how to use our votes? Any suggestions how we can find out?
Read the newspapers, sir. The only thing I can think of is to go around the various halls and hear the speakers. See what they're going to give us, what they have to say.
What's the snag about reading the papers, do you think?
Well, each newspaper expresses the opinion of the political party sponsoring it. One paper expresses the Tory point of view, another one expresses the...
Yes, it's all your business. For one day soon, your turn will come. And when that day comes, you want to be ready. ready to pick up the tools of peace, to help build that new Britain that we all want. Yes, the new Britain is your responsibility, for you are the future citizens. You, and you.